point these. Oh wait, we have a thing. 3 to 5, so I'll just start without. Sure. Okay, get the thing rolling here. Check, check. Check, check. There we go. Okay, so welcome to Celluloid Dreams. If you haven't guessed, hey Jason. Anyone who causes a problem will have to answer to this man.
Not easy to deal with.
Oh, how's our camera, Squirrel? Awesome. You recording?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So, as most of you may have guessed, this is a panel about hand-drawn animation. Who here has only primarily seen digital animation? Show of hands. No. But you watch the crap out of Lupin. Put your hand down. Loading, loading, loading. Open, open, loading. That does suck. So yeah, this is Celluloid Dreams. And here we're going to be talking about, not only our love for cel-painted animation, what makes it special, but also the histories, the techniques, as well as the hobby side of collecting. But for right now, I'm going to go into the art itself. So, of course, cel animation. As you can see here, this is now, has anyone here seen the anime Otaku no video? Oh, okay, yeah. Of course Merv has. It's a great little mockumentary about the founding of Studio Gainax. This little sequence here that this image is from is basically they're making their own fan film. If you know anything about Gainax, they kind of got their start doing the opening animations for the Daikon conventions. Really just an animation club at school, but a good one to check out. So, really quick talk about the brief history of celluloid itself. This was the industry standard material for not only animation cels, but also film and pretty much any transparency for many, many decades until I believe the 1950s. I believe they're using some form of acetate right now, but either way, that's where the term cel comes from. So it's still called an animation cel, regardless of whatever material they may use. So, how are these things made? You start with your production sketches, your key sketches especially. This, of course, is from Macross, I believe the movie Do You Remember Love? And you can see here, I use my mouse. So you can see, in addition to the basic line art, you also have some finer lines showing where all the shadowing is, artist's notes. Apparently he didn't want anyone to do that and made some changes there. I don't speak Japanese, sorry. What?
Do you not able out?
No. Maybe.
There we go. It seems a bit finicky. The mouse. There we go.
Okay. It wouldn't be a con without technical difficulties. So moving on, those are then traced and painted over on your key cels. Again, these are your master artists doing all the important shots. It depends on, how they want to go about it. Techniques for, the standards vary from region to region, studio to studio, but it's pretty much like, every third or every fifth frame or whatever is your key cel. And again, this is where you stick the majority of your talent, and then this is flushed out by the in-betweeners. And as you can see here, even in quality productions, there's still little off bits. Of course, nowadays, most in-betweens are farmed out to South Korea, so you get fun things like this. If you freeze frame Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, there are some hilarious in-betweens you can find. Now, who knows what rotoscoping is? Okay, so basically, and this is actually an example of famous artist Max Fleischer doing this. So you have a live actor or model standing in front of a movie camera. And of course, movie camera takes pictures of frames. So what they do then is they put those through this contraption, and frame by frame, the image is projected onto here and then traced over, mainly with the goal of getting lifelike movements, or if you're trying to do some weird angles. And here are a few examples of that we feel are very noteworthy. Of course, Disney was a huge fan of this. They rotoscoped quite a lot of things. In particular, there's a dance scene in Cinderella that was rotoscoped. They re-rotoscoped that for about 3 or 4 different films, including Robin Hood. Heavy Metal? Who here has seen the Heavy Metal movie? Okay. So here we see the scene from Tarna. This is the actual bit of film that was used for the animation. And here's the final image. Now of course, for those of you who don't know, Heavy Metal was a collection of shorts, and this one in particular, pretty much the entire thing was rotoscoped, super fluid, super realistic motion. You really have to see it for yourself.
Almost cel-shaded live action is the way it looks.
It can. And this last one, I'm pretty sure none of you have heard of this except for like 2 or 3 of you. Okay, this one is really cool to talk about, especially coming off of Heavy Metal. Basically, think if someone set out to make a PG-rated Heavy Metal movie, but then managed to make it good. And basically, toning down the violence, but still keeping, a lot of on-screen deaths, and still a lot of sexuality in there, but just toned down to some still very blatant innuendo. But the point I'm talking about it here, you see the ship. This, pretty much the whole movie was rotoscoped, but it really shines with the ships. They kind of went back and forth between wireframe CGI and Star Wars style model special effects, filmed a whole scene in that, and then rotoscoped over it.
Wow.
So, what makes cel animation special, you might ask? Pretty much the same things as digital animation, but it's about the personal touch. With hand-painted animation, within the brush strokes themselves, the pen lines, everything, there's a lot more of the personal touch of the artist, and generally breathes a lot more life into it. As it says, quote, flaws add personality. I like to liken it to, as it says here, kintsugi. This is a Japanese practice where they take gold-filled lacquer and use that to repair broken bits of pottery, like a teacup or whatnot. And it's the idea that it is now more beautiful having been damaged, having been slightly imperfect. And there's our other panelist.
Bloody hell. Anybody else whose employers decided to employ them today? I'm currently cosplaying as the assistant parts manager for Casper Toyota.
So where did you park?
Shameless advertisement.
Yes. Buy smart, buy Toyota. Otherwise, get Ben.
Justin, this last major bullet point on here, I think we can let you go on with, because it was something you were quite keen to talk about.
Yes. So, I need more cord.
Hold on. Here.
How about them parking now? Okay. I'm glad Mike actually let me in on this one, because digital animators and software limitations. Not certain how many of you have worked with anything like Flash or any of the other programs out there, but there are actually some fairly specific limitations regarding coloring, regarding outlining, regarding range of movement, regarding frame. You can only do as much as the software lets you.
Yeah. With hand-drawn animation, if you can draw it, you can make it. As will be very evident by...
Oh, damn.
Technical difficulties.
Someone...
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a ledge there.
No, it's this.
Oh, okay, great. Pens count as a ledge.
Man, this is all kinds of technical difficulties today.
As
Anyway, but yeah, as one we're going to talk about later will show, if you are willing to put an unlimited amount of time and budget into something, you can do something pretty special.
yes, and to actually go back a little bit on what I said about frame size, one of the classic animator tricks, this was actually something developed by Japanese animators in the way back when, was to simply create the initial cels much larger than the photographed frame, and then to pan the camera over different areas of it, so you had single frame animation, and you had all this animation going on in this massive crowd scene, but you could move around the crowd scene, rather than having to animate each transition and each movement.
Now, you can also do a lot of fun tricks with backgrounds with this. If you've ever seen Katsuhiro Otomo's Memories, the short cannon fodder, if you've ever seen it, that intro scene where they're moving through the town, hanging all through it, that's one background. So, like I said, moving into some examples.
And this was one I really, really wanted to lead off on.
Don't worry, we're getting to Japanese stuff here, but this is worth talking about.
Yeah. The gentleman behind this, Richard Williams, was one of the greatest students of and practitioners of the art of animation. He was also a total kook.
Oh, a complete nut job in the best of ways. And he actually said he wanted, this film is several decades and several millions of dollars of his own money in the making, and it's still not technically complete. Yeah. It was released, but as you see here, Studio Phil notwithstanding, under it being a miracle of animation, he's like, well, I need money and this thing, and so I'll put this thing out in some form. So he sold the rights to a studio who then filled in the gaps, put a bunch of musical numbers in it, turned it into a wannabe Disney film, and it's kind of terrible.
In fact, like, if I recall right, it was actually DreamWorks.
Yeah, it was DreamWorks.
Yeah, DreamWorks, in their earlier days, spotted the huge success that was Aladdin, based just off of the trailers of Aladdin, and wanted to beat Disney to the punch with their own Arabian-themed animated film. And somebody said, "Hey, Williams has that movie that's got a lot of Arabian elements to it, and it's got Vincent Price voicing the villain." Which, the funniest thing, the theatrical release of Thief and the Cobbler was something like 14 years after Vincent Price had died.
No way.
Yeah.
So,
and I actually got a clip of this I'm going to show you. Now, I have to say, any other qualities of the film aside, the sheer fluidity of animation rivals pretty much anything I've ever seen anywhere.
And
if you just want to talk smoothness of animation, this is the top. Sorry, even beating Akira. Like, Akira is a better film.
yeah,
But
this is a very important thing. Even if you track down what is considered the most complete version of Thief and the Cobbler,
it's still, oddly enough, a cobbled together mess.
yeah, frequently referred to as the recobbled edit, which deletes a lot of the pieces that DreamWorks actually did to splice together a cohesive narrative, which was terrible.
Okay, so this is a one of the best. The whole thing is just how well can I animate this? How it's almost animation Dragon Force. Like how overly complicated can I make this? And here we go.
I saw this once when I was younger, and it took me 2 years to find it again after I saw it once.
MC Escher, you bastard. here's Vincent Price.
You've finished your young shoe. You've done it very well. And now she has no need of you instead.
So, disclaimer, this movie isn't actually good.
Yes. A very, very critical thing to note. For students of animation, this is one of the absolute high water marks. For anybody who actually wants to watch a movie,
It's terrible.
it's terrible. It is incoherent because it is the mad ramblings of a genius.
Yes. So, moving on from that, a brief section about antique animation. I mentioned Max Fleischer. Excuse me. Boomacola. Fleischer's Superman, especially you want to talk like early Western, well, earlier,
Yeah, pre-war.
Yeah, Western animation. Again, some really good balancing of artwork and animation fluidity. He did kind of keep a lot of the character designs generic, but that was always kind of his shtick.
Yeah. And to be completely fair, at this point in time, what we would now consider a generic character design was a fairly new character design.
Yes.
Also neat aside, Bruce Timm, of course, the gentleman behind Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series, frequently states that he was trying very much to emulate the classic Fleischer series.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we do have to talk about Fantasia. At least for my personal taste, again, kind of in a similar thing to Thief and the Cobbler. It's not a particularly great film for my taste, but it does some impressive things with animation.
Oddly enough, this is very similar to Thief and the Cobbler in being the mad ramblings of a genius. Walt Disney was incredibly adamant that animation had to be for everyone, that it was not simply a children's aside. And his main idea to get this idea across was he was going to combine opera with animation. He wanted to do abstract animation, surrealist animation, tied in with classic orchestral pieces. And Fantasia was a piece he really wanted to do effectively ever since Snow White, and he considered it his triumph. And it was very much a piece he lost money on. And it was a piece that critics slagged hugely at the time as a completely misguided, incoherent, idiotic affair. It was referred to as a farce in its day.
Yep. And of course, we can't talk about antique animation, especially stuff that was, influential on Japan, without mentioning Felix the Cat. Fun factoid, actually, Felix the Cat, due to a test broadcast, was the first image shown on US TV.
Felix is also the origin of a lot of the more absurdist elements of television animation around the world. Felix's infamous bag of tricks,
Yes.
wherein he can pull anything out of anywhere, created a carte blanche to do whatever the animators wanted, and they pushed that to absolute absurd extremes. And because so many early animators grew up watching that, because Felix the Cat was frequently sold in less reputable, smaller market theaters, he was a nickel show, he was a serial. That gave a lot more people a lot more exposure to him, even than the Disney films, which could cost you upwards of a good quarter, and you had to go to the nice theater downtown to see it.
Yep. Also, personal recommendation. There was a really good Felix the Cat series from the 90s called Twisted Tales of Felix. Anyone familiar with the video game Cuphead? That's okay. Oh, cool. It's Cuphead the show. It's taking all the obscure, almost grotesque elements of cartoons from this series, but using actual Felix the Cat and just playing with it in the best of ways. So check that one out. Actually, something good to come out of the 90s. But yeah, one of the reasons we talked about these, they are all heavily experimental with their own unique visual language. And that's very important to point out for what we're talking about.
Yeah. when we say a visual language, we're talking about those elements that make something unique, and not only unique in terms of a character design or a story, but where you could pan away from the character, pan away from anything recognizable as far as a trademark, and still tell, oh, that's Fleischer, oh, that's Disney, or, as we'll see later, oh, that's Leiji Matsumoto, oh, that's Katsuri Hirotomo, and so on.
So, getting into that, of course, if you know anything about us, we are all about what we consider anime's golden age. Roughly, we would say 1980 to 1993. But we're going to talk about one or two other things from beyond that. So, before we get into this, full disclosure, Open Office was fighting me. It let me embed that Thief and the Cobbler video, but it was giving me trouble with anything else. So, we're going to briefly discuss these, and then we're going to have a short little movie time where I'll show the clips on their own.
Yes.
So, who here has seen this film?
Oh, macros?
You make me sad.
That is not
no.
a positive ratio, folks.
Yeah. But that's okay. We are not here to discriminate. We're here to enlighten.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure most of you at least know what Macross is. Okay. This is an alternate reality retelling of the TV series with some of the... Whether or not you want to put the animation on the top end, the sheer attention to detail is astounding.
The real hallmarks in the film are actually all of the shots focusing on the Fortress Macross itself. It really gives a very nice feeling of just the immensity of the object, as well as how vulnerable it is at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And every single turret, every single trench,
Don't forget the missile porn.
the missile porn, all of it wonderfully rendered, and even more importantly, actually, for me, again, as an animation student, the backgrounds.
Yes.
The painting in the backgrounds in Macross is almost itself worth the price of admission well before the animation.
Mm-hmm. Can't not talk about this. As I often say, yes, I can think of one film that I like this better or that better. As a package deal, as a completed product, as the sum of its parts, for me at least, Akira is the high watermark for animation anywhere ever.
Yeah. It also ranks as adjusted for inflation.
Yes.
It's quite possibly the most expensive anime of all time.
Like we're talking James Cameron's Avatar expensive, at least the equivalent thereof.
And when speaking as to our topic, the most interesting things about Akira from an animation standpoint, firstly, backlighting.
Yes.
The heavy use of the transparency of the cell to bring out all of those fun neons within the sequence. When you see especially the bike racing sequence from the earliest piece, part of the film. I'm still catching my breath.
You're good, man. You're good. But yeah, the backlighting thing, especially with laser effects and whatnot, this was actually pretty standard for this practice for this era, and it's sad because even if they pretty much don't know how to do it anymore, even if they wanted to.
It's something that you can't do. You certainly can't do as easily as, I'm going to put a piece of light behind a transparent piece of plastic.
Yeah, it's pretty nearly a lost art.
Quick note, the practice was actually first popularized by Don Bluth in the 70s with Secret of Nim.
Yeah.
So we actually had him to thank for kind of showing the way on that.
But as always, Japan took something the West did and just ran with it like a pair of scissors.
I'm not going to die, I promise.
Don't die. So, brief story time. Who here even, aside from the Gundam franchise, who here even knows what this film is? Awesome, I get to tell a story. Okay, so, Bandai and possibly Tomino as well wanted to reinvent Gundam. They wanted to just, in their own words, redefine what Gundam was. And they were going to do it with this grand TV series that was supposed to be able to rival the original or Zeta. But the 90s happened, Budget got tight. They wanted to do some more profitable projects, but they had already written most of the script and they had already allocated the budget. They just didn't want to allocate the time. So they then were able, so they then, well, first it's funny because they shoved 50-something episodes worth of story into a 2-hour movie. But on the plus side for what we're talking about, they had 52 episodes worth of budget to put into a 2-hour movie. And it's often regarded as the most beautifully animated Gundam film.
Yeah, this one even tops Char's Counterattack
Yes.
as far as pure artwork. There's an early point of view sequence actually in this film that is especially interesting because it is a point of view sequence during a mobile suit fight.
Yes.
From the point of view of someone on the ground.
Yeah, there's actually Gundam, for anyone who knows, is all about, yes, it's big stompy robots, but it's also about the horrors of war. You actually see some mother trying to escape the battle with her child, and one of the friendly GMs is trying to shoot down the attacking mobile suit. Well, the ejected shell casing bonks her on the head, and when the shell casing is the size of him,
yeah,
Doesn't work out too well.
no, yeah, she insta dead.
yeah. It's also worth noting, as with most things in Gundam that are especially bleak and horrifying, that was Yoshiyuki Tomino saying, "Yep, gotta put that in there." Absolutely, I hate people.
Gotta kill them all, Tomino. Yes. So, who here likes Urusei Yatsura? Okay, I would just looking at you, I would be kind of disappointed if you didn't. But yes, this is another one of our bleak directors, Mamoru Oshii.
Yeah, you want to talk about an interesting pairing of creative talent. Rumiko Takahashi, this was her first big hit.
And honestly, perfectly named film. The whole thing feels like a dream. If you want to just get sucked into a movie, this is what you watch.
Yeah, pointing out the
tank in a school.
Yes, there's a tank in the school.
The story itself, you actually don't even really need that much exposure to Urusei Yatsura to
Yeah.
enjoy this film.
You can just watch this. This was actually the first thing I watched from this franchise, so you can just jump right into it.
Yeah, the story basically takes out the Urashima Taro myth from Japan of Japanese Rip Van Winkle.
Yes, Japanese Rip Van Winkle. Yes, simplest way
And
to
it
put it.
plays with that. For those of us who are looking at it from an animation standpoint, there is a walking sequence, and for whatever reason, walking sequences and Mamoru Oshii, that's his thing.
Yeah, he gets
loves
off
to do
on
a
that.
sequence where the characters are just walking through a desolate part of the town. But what's amazing is there are puddles everywhere.
Actually, that's the clip I selected, so you don't have to
We will
describe
get
it
to
more.
show you that clip.
It exemplifies the dreamlike quality.
Yeah, and you see the shot, because it's staged with film composition, the shot is upwards towards the characters, capturing them walking, but with their reflections in the puddles. But it's not one continuous puddle, it's all these small puddles interspersed along the pavement.
You'll see it. So this is, I'm actually letting you talk about this one. I'm familiar with this man's work, but this is one he really wanted to talk about.
Miyazawa is a Japanese poet and children's author, and he does all of these really neat pieces where everyone is a cat.
Yes.
He did Night on the Galactic Railroad and also Spring in Chaos. But Night on the Galactic Railroad is the one I wanted to capture because this is, what would be the best way to explain to the uninitiated without giving anything away? Night on the Galactic Railroad is a very somber, very quiet film. The best way I can explain is it's a very quiet film. It has very, very little dialogue. It has very, very little other than these sequences of this young boy trying to find his friend the night of a carnival as they travel on the Galactic Railroad. It is just so gorgeous in its simplicity, wherein most everything is placed against these dark blues and blacks and purples, and you just draw out very, very small bits of color and very, very small actions, but they're all rendered with such detail and caution that it makes for an astonishing film just to take in. It's an emotive piece.
Well, like you referenced Angel's Egg earlier, for everyone's seen that, it's very aesthetically similar in terms of that. So this, of course, is a much newer one, but we have to talk about this. This is not the last, but one of the last hurrahs for, hand-painted animation, and boy, did they go all in.
Yeah, Studio Madhouse has a wonderful reputation for attempting to bankrupt themselves in order to realize great art. They'd already done this once before, and whenever you're talking Vampire Hunter D, you're talking an absolute dream team. Hideyuki Kikuchi, the novelist, writes the novels upon which this is based. Yoshiaki Kawajiri, also behind films like Ninja Scroll and the XTV series, does the directing. Yoshitaka Amano does the character designs and the backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with absolute beauty that caused an entire team of animators to quit.
And we'll actually show a clip made by those animators later. But yeah, especially with Kawajiri's tendency to copy off Sergio Leone, it's, as I believe you once worded it, it's basically think post-apoc, steampunk, vampire fistful of dollars. So, movie time.
Kentucky Fried Anime.
So, for time, well, here, we'll start off with Do You Remember Love? This is unsubtitled just because I wanted to show the whole thing.
And of course, the critical thing here is you take a look and just look around the edges of the frame. Look back behind her. I mean, aside from watching how her eyes move and so forth, there are ships moving all the way back. That's about 7 layers of celluloid right there.
And there's the missile form.
I'd also like to point out, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this movie, she is in fact trying to stop a war with singing.
And oddly enough, it works.
And it works.
I would say spoiler alert, but if you know what Macross is, that shouldn't surprise you.
Of course, if you're a Macross fan, just the sight of Minmay right now is sending the shakes through you. She's not dead. Why is she not dead?
Laser porn.
Time, energy, and a lot of guys are willing to stay up all night long to paint these things.
And again, right here is an example of like the background detail he's talking about with they're painting.
Oddly enough, if you ever really want a good glimpse of what the Japanese animation industry was like at this point in time, 2 good anime for that. Number 1, the 6th episode of Golden Boy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, watch Golden Boy anyway because it's hysterical, but the 6th episode of Golden Boy is a great portrait in time. The second would be Otaku no Video.
Oh, I already discussed that.
Okay, good. Arguably, you could also toss Animation Runner Kuromi on that pile, but I don't feel like punishing you all.
Yeah. Now, there's a sequence coming up right here where they just turn the animation up to 11. It never gets old. Right about here. And again, just, you know, the animators are like, yeah, screw it, we'll shove this little joke in here that no one's ever going to see for 20 years.
Because at the time you couldn't freeze frames.
Unless you bought Laserdisc.
Yeah, let's see what later it is.
That's about it.
Side note, DYRL on Laserdisc, ridiculously expensive to this day.
Also, side note, that song there, for whatever reason, Mari Ejima refuses to play that at her concerts these days. Every now and then she will, but for whatever reason she doesn't. Okay, I'll actually go into, let's see, we're going to, okay, I'll show the short version of this F91 clip. Kind of figured this might come in. This is what happens when you over budget.
Yeah. Specifically when you over budget because you under budgeted.
Yes.
ドレーム大会は途中の妨害を無視して隕石の上へ直進する我のフラッグに続け
It's also worth noting around this point in time, basically the thing that got the most animation attention, space battles.
Yes.
Everybody wanted to draw space battles.
And you can see with that sort of laser banner thing, that's exactly what we're talking about with the backlighting techniques.
Yeah. In all technicality, for those of you who are Gundam completionists, F91 is technically Universal Century, but it is so far in the future of Universal Century, it almost doesn't count.
I think it's like 10 years after Victory. Of course, technically the last UC series anything was G-Savior, but that was a made-for-TV Canadian live-action movie, so count that as you will.
That's the UI quote next to.
I'm confused. You strung together some weird words.
Yeah. So, this is the clip he was describing from Beautiful Dreamer. And again, another Oshi tip, pairing with beautiful visuals with beautiful music.
You can see what I mean about the blocking in the scene with the characters and it's shot through debris in the puddles.
Now they're going to do something really fun with this here in a sec.
Quick explanation. She's an alien. She paired up with the most perverted man on Earth by accident.
And bad taste.
She's a demon alien, isn't she?
They're aliens, but they're based on Oni.
It's Rumiko Takahashi. She just does things. And then
And here's an example of Oshi just does things. This is the most Oshi sequence in the movie. And again, just the dreamlike quality I'm talking right here just nails it.
And of course, critical thing always consider. I keep using the word critical. I'm sorry.
You're good.
But important thing to remember with animation, the camera doesn't move aside from in a two-dimensional plane. Every shift, every pan, every rack focus, that's drawn. That's some guy saying, okay, so then this frame I've got to draw it up here, and then I've got to draw it up here. Whenever you see the camera in anime move in 3 dimensions, that's the director saying, I want this, and the animator saying, you son of a...
Now we got time for one more. I will actually, I think D?
Yes.
Okay, so, brief backstory to this clip. They made an entire side team just for this 1 minute and some odd second clip, and it drove them insane. I'm pretty sure a few of them were considering suicide after this.
No, they were considering killing Kawajiri.
Ah. But yes,
This is the sequence upon which they set aside this whole team that you just do this because it absolutely has to look this way.
and they're like, oh God, everything moves. Why does everything move?
Also, fun note, despite being a Japanese film, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust was not actually recorded originally in Japanese. It was originally done in English and then dubbed into Japanese for the home market. It's also one of the very, very few anime films to carry a Motion Picture Association of America rating, specifically rated R, because it did have a very brief theatrical run the year of its release.
Yes, this was some poor Japanese animation team's nightmare for a couple months.
Do you ever hear the expression, too close for comfort? That was damn.
So yeah, moving back to the presentation, because we do have a bit more to talk about. Here. Come on, load. Load.
Complete load.
Yes. So, the hobby. So who here actually owns animation cells? Awesome. That's still a fair amount of you.
Yeah, Mike. The cards.
Oh yeah, no, I have a slide for that.
No, I meant the cards, the R2 cards.
No, I know, I have a slide for that.
Yes, we're getting there.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about the many tiers of cell collecting, and no, that is not a typo. And it does actually, this is just an image I found on Google, but it does break down to 4 basic tiers.
Yes, and the reason we split this into both explaining the beauty of this period of animation and the fun of the hobby that goes along with it is because there is one sensation that we as fans of the art consider really key.
Yes.
Consider it this way. This is my all-time favorite character of all time. This is Mihoshi Koremitsu.
I wanted to correct that statement. It's his wife.
We're not married, we're living in sin.
Oh, okay. But does she ruin your life-oo?
Sorry, I left way part of it.
He does that well enough.
She's the great granddaughter of a goddess. Of course she does.
There we go.
Anyway, moving on. This particular cell is actually from her first appearance in the show. When she appears in the Tenchi Muyo OAV's episode 4, Miyoshi Falls from the Land of Stars. This is from her original sequence in the show. This sequence was about, her first appearance I'd say ran about 35 seconds in the show. That's 24 frames per second. Of this second that she was on the screen, I own 1/24 of that show.
And that's really what it's down to. You can freeze frame on just the right part in your favorite show. You can point to the screen and you can say, I physically own that.
Yes.
So,
I own a part of my favorite show. I own a part of my favorite character.
yes. So, how do you go about doing that? Well, we're going to go into the different ways, the different levels of entry. So, bargain bin. Start out basic. This image right here is actually from my personal collection. Worth noting, I bought some stuff, so they just threw this one in for free.
Yeah.
So you can get some of this pretty cheap sometimes, but like this partial sketches or cells. This was a still painting of the face where the eyes and mouth were moving. That's why it's like that. Or you can have, scribble, doodle sketches, stuff like that. That's just kind of, whatever. Or, as we talked about before, low quality South Korean, probably South Korean in-betweens. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Production sketches are actually somewhat very interesting, depending on which ones you find. Every now and again, you'll find one that's actually from a sequence that they didn't use in the show, so that's always fun.
So, then your beginner stuff, decent quality production sketches, cels with, as you can see here, characters in weird poses or with small characters, and especially your Samurai Pizza Cats. Now, I love this show, but there is no demand for this. There's actually a really good cel available in the dealer's room, at a place we'll talk to you about in a sec. That's 2 of the main characters, front and center, nice and huge, like $35 with background. So if you're really into a series that no one gives a crap about, sometimes you can get the good ones cheap. So that's why it's in the beginner section. That's really all there is to that. Moving on, hobbyist. This is also a piece from my personal collection from Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. So you have, cels with large characters, good close-ups, or in this case also striking poses. Accompanied by usually a reproduction background. That's usually what you're going to find. Production backgrounds go for a premium, and again, this is very sought after. Here you start getting into the hundreds of dollars. I think this one cost me like $3 something.
Yes, it does kind of have a curve like that when you start talking pricing. But the other thing, of course, to absolutely consider is finite supply.
Yes.
There are only so many of these. In some instances, there are reproduction cels, but you really don't want to collect them. You lose so much with a reproduction cel as far as the texture of it.
Yeah, you can see, the actual brush strokes. If you look on the back of the thing, you can actually see the order in which the paint was layered on.
You can see mistakes.
Yes.
Places where they actually,
Yes, scrape, scrape, scrape. And the top tier, advanced. So, it says here, level 3 quality or better can still fall in this tier. Now, it includes production backgrounds. That's where you're going to get into it. And again, from highly sought after films, or films, as he said, with few surviving cels. Weirdly, The Simpsons is a weird example of this. To save money, they would actually wash cels in the early days and reuse them, and nowadays, just to secure scarcity, they actually incinerate cels after they're done. So if you get a Simpsons cel from a more recent but still hand-drawn episode, yeah. Chances are that someone working there saved it from the incinerator.
Yeah, and again, you're also going to run into that with oddball but important historically series. And important note, you see right here?
Yes.
Ghibli is this tier. Ghibli cels are painful to purchase.
Good example. You've all seen My Neighbor Totoro? Mm-hmm. You know the little spider webby border for the credits? Mm-hmm. I saw a cel of just that border, $450. And Akira. Especially if you get, a good Akira cel, background, good shot of Kaneda on his motorcycle, something like that, you're looking thousands. And, tier 4 here, it says also includes, deleted scene sketches, things that weren't used, storyboards, original character design cels, like Merv, you picked up a nice one there. And maquettes. If you don't know what a maquette is, it's a doll that that the artist poses and uses for reference. Any kind of artist reference material is also tier 4.
Yeah.
So, moving on. Basically, there are some cheap buy-ins, but if you want to get serious into it, it's going to take a lot of money. And how'd this get in here? Short story, I owe these guys a lot of money, so if you go there and buy some stuff from them, they may let me keep my kneecaps. We have some cards for them up here if any of you would like them. They're in the dealer's room right now.
Absolutely. Dan and Mary,
they're wonderful.
They're fantastic people. They're great as well just to talk to because they have very expansive knowledge of the hobby. And they can also refer you to people to frame your cels. I cannot stress that enough. Get your cels professionally framed in a suspended frame.
Yes.
Suspended frame means that the cel does not touch anything because the friction even of the backing board will chip that fragile acrylic paint. And it costs you money in the long run.
Yep. And speaking to Artoons again, these guys will work with you. You buy a bunch, they'll work with you on price. They do layaway. So if you have, some spare income, you see an expensive cell you want, you'll have to put a down payment on it, of course. But they've owned my soul for what, 4 years now?
6.
6? Damn. So, brief Q&A while I'm cleaning stuff up for the next people. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Concerns?
Existential crisis as to why you decided to spend an hour with us?
They made peace with that by now.
That was 30 minutes.
30 minutes?